The upcoming White Dwarf 482 is packed with goodies. For Warcry in particular, it's pretty much an auto-buy. We have a battle report, a Warcry dashboard, which honestly might mean I'm picking up 2 copies, and the topic of today's video, fighter cards for the models that appeared in the Warhammer Underworld box Gnarlwood. Now, we've seen Underworld models before in Warcry. The Tome of Champions 2022 gave us the rules for all the various warbands, which it called Bladeborn Fighters. Unfortunately, when the rules updated to the new edition, we didn't get an update for the Bladeborn, so they went back to being stand-ins for generic fighters. Apart from letting us play with some awesome models, the Bladeborn Fighters add an extra dimension in list building to the game. They are each part of an existing warband, so in this case we have the Sons of Velmorn, who are part of the Soulblight Gravelords, while the Gnarlspirit Pack are part of the Slaves of Darkness warband. As part of a warband, they get access to that warband's ability list, and in addition bring some of their own abilities. Each of the fighters is unique, so while you could have multiple White Kings, there will only be one King Velmorn. This gives the designers a little bit more leeway to push designs, as they don't have to worry about a list spamming tons of the same model. What's really interesting about the Bladeborn is how they interact with other warbands. Each of the Bladeborn groups has a single hero, so you can recruit this hero into another warband within the same Grand Alliance as an ally. If you do this, then that unlocks the non-heroes in the Bladeborn group as fighters you can pick up. So if you're playing Flesh Eater Courts and you recruit King Velmorn as an ally, you can then add any or all of his sons as fighters. In campaigns, as named characters, they don't have to roll for injuries, which is great, but never get any renown and cannot have artifacts of power. Alright, enough talking about Bladeborn rules. Let's have a look at some of the fighters. A few of the pages from the White Dwarf have appeared online, so we have details of the fighters. I've used the Warcry card creator to mock up some of these cards, so they look a little bit different to the ones you're going to get in White Dwarf. First up, we have the Gnarlspirit Pack. There are 4 in total, and remember all these are unique models, so you can never have more than one of each. We're going to take a quick look over them, we'll look at the abilities they've got access to, and then we'll come back to the fighter cards to examine them in more detail. This group totals out at 560 points, so taking all 4 will be over half your warband. All are chunky, with 15 wounds being the lowest, and all having toughness 4. This is also a pretty speedy group, with all apart from Gorl having 5 move, and Sarakar, the leader, has fly. Apart from Sarakar having the leader and fly, there are no other rune marks in this warband. If you look at the abilities, these are the combined options they've got access to. The first is a double Unleash, which adds 1 to move characteristics and 1 to attack. We've seen this ability before. It's a nice combination of the Universal Rush and Onslaught abilities, and will be better when you're charging into attack. Interestingly, this also gives the user the Beast trait for the remainder of the round, presumably representing them channeling their animal spirit. This is a drawback. Beasts cannot move through closed doors and cannot carry treasure. If you're planning on doing either of those, just don't bother using the ability. Compared to other abilities that are similar, I suspect the end of round is just there for the Beast trait, but it does mean you get to keep that +1 move and +1 attack dice if you happen to get activated later in the round. Since the fighter will have the Beast trait, that means the Beast Stalker or Master Molder can both trigger an extra attack and they'll still benefit from that +1 die bonus. The second ability is a triple that ups the toughness of the fighter and adds 1 to their hits and crits. All the fighters are toughness 4 already, so moving to toughness 5 can be quite good. The combination gives you an option to increase survivability while still laying the smackdown. You are getting slightly more damage against a T4 target than you would with an extra attack dice, but it's typically only around 0.5 extra damage. Third ability is a quad that gives each other friendly fighter a bonus move or attack. It's nice that this doesn't require any range, and as it's only other fighters, you're trading in your quad for 3 extra actions, which compares favourably to the 2 from Rampage. As part of the Slaves of Darkness faction, they also have access to a decent reaction, which can save a fighter that would otherwise die, a double that improves strength, typically that's worse than getting an extra dice, and Sarakar gets access to the hero triple that will give him an extra attack or move if he kills an enemy fighter. Sarakar isn't exactly a monster, but it's pretty nice to have. Alright, let's look at the numbers. Sarakar Blackwing is notable for his fly, and at 185 is one of the cheaper options. The range attack makes him somewhat comparable to the Cinch Disc heroes, but at 5 move he's not as fast. That said, the next cheapest fly hero is the Fluxmaster at 240 points, so that's a big difference. All the abilities are melee only, so he doesn't have much support for his range ability, but it's nice to have. He isn't a super strong fighter, but he does open up a new option for the Chaos Grand Alliance. Gorl Spinehammer is an absolute unit with 5.5 average damage, and for the Slaves to Darkness warband is the third most efficient damage dealer behind the two Chaos Warriors with two-handed weapons. He's comparable to the Dark Oath Chieftain, who's a little bit more expensive at 155 with 0.5 more average damage and 2 more wounds. We talked earlier about using the double unleash to get an extra attack die and become a beast. This guy is the best target for it, and if you're playing Untamed Beasts, an unleashed Gorl Spinehammer is going to do more damage than a Rock Tusk Prowler will, and at a fraction of the price. Lupan Longcut is notable for his reach, either 2 range with 3 average damage, or 8 range with 3 average damage. The closest I could find for comparison for him was the First Fang from the Untamed Beasts, who is 10 more points, but has significantly better damage. Lupan is 5 speed and does have reach on the melee attack, but the comparison is still pretty stark. Crimson Kiera is the same cost as Lupan, but instead of reach she has a bucket of dice, ending up at 4.17 average damage. Her low strength means she will benefit from the Slave to Darkness double to increase strength. Similarly, the triple that increases hits and crits is good, but really you want both of them. Increasing strength only gives you more chances to hit, and if you only hit for 1, that's not too impressive. Increasing your damage is great, but if you're only hitting on a 5+, that impact is relatively small. She is straightforward, but decent. Here I paired her with the Bestigor, who has a similar move, toughness and damage, but a little less health for 20 points less. The Bestigor isn't a particularly exciting fighter, it's fine, which I guess says a lot about Kiera. Overall, they're a really interesting mix. Gorl is a big beatstick, while Kiera has the consistency of lots of dice. Lupan has reach, while Sarkar has fly and a decent range ability. I'm not immediately cramming them into a tournament list, but I wouldn't feel like I was at a disadvantage if I wanted to run them. I think this is a successful design team. They're comparable to other existing fighters while having their own spin and twist and feeling flavorful and interesting. Next up we have the Sons of Velmorn. This is part of the Soulblight Gravelords warband from the Death faction. They have 5 fighters in total, 2 are quite chunky while the remaining 3 are cheap chaff. In total the warband comes to 505 points, again about 50% of your total. King Morlock Velmorn has the Hero rune mark and also has the Berserker rune mark. Sir Jedrin Falseborn has the Champion rune mark, not to be confused with the similar Hero one. All the rest have the Minion rune mark, which is important for some of the Soulblight Gravelord abilities. They have 3 abilities specific to the Sons, with each fighter only able to access 1 ability each. The double Sleepless Sentinel is only available to Sir Jedrin, and as long as he stays within 1 inch of King Velmorn, the king cannot be targeted. Since Sir Jedrin has 30 wounds, that's a lot of killing you need to get through before you can even get to the king. Against Soulblight Gravelords, killing the heroes can be a better tactic than killing the minions, and this ability prevents that, which makes it good. You may also be able to set up situations where the king has a high priority to kill, like when he's carrying treasure. Next up we have a double for the minions. This is notable as the other Sons are very similar to the Graveguard fighters, and this really is what sets them apart. It does not disappoint. With 2 extra dice to attacks for the end of their activation, you're getting a lot of extra damage. The fighters have between 3 and 4 attack dice normally, so the ability gives them 50 to 66% extra damage, which can really be big. Last we have a triple, which can only be used by King Velmorn himself. This adds 1 strength to other Velmorn fighters, but as 3 of the 4 are already at strength 5, you're going to need some tough enemies for this to be worth considering. After that, you're into the usual Soulblight abilities, a reaction to reduce damage taken, a double to give some extra movement. King Velmorn gets the double Beheading Strike, which will increase his crit damage. Not usually something to be interested in, but with 4 dice he's got a decent chance of getting a crit. He also has that classic triple Summon Undead Minion, which is where most of your triples are going to go. He cannot bring back Sir Jedrin, but any of the other 3 are fair game. This isn't a big change for the Soulblight list, where you already have this, but now other death warbands can get the Sons. Lastly, Sir Jedrin gets access to a quad, which will give him an extra attack and bonus dice and strength equal to the ability dice. Quads are unreliable when it comes to values, but in theory, even the quad 1 will give a slightly better outcome than a rampage if you don't need to move. Those are the abilities. Let's look at the fighters in a little bit more detail. Here we have the minions. They're directly comparable to the Graveguard fighters. The Graveguard with Great White Blade is possibly one of the best fighters in the game right now. Even though it's slow, it's just so damage efficient and it can be brought back, so you're not concerned if it dies. Thane, 4th and last, is 5 more points, but that's still insane value. Helmaw and Marshal Falk both are variations on the Blade and Shield, 5 to 10 more expensive but better damage. The 3 combined cost 195 points. Before the Sons of Velmorn appeared, you would just take 3 White Blades instead, which would be the exact same price. So you're trading some base damage for the Sibling Rivalry ability, essentially an onslaught double that gives 2 dice rather than 1. It's situational, but they are comparable, and the burst damage of the ability can let you concentrate damage when you need to. Heading over to the big guys, we have King Morlach Velmorn and Sir Jedran Falseborn. King Velmorn is identical to a White King, but costs 5 more. For that you're getting access to a triple you're probably not going to use, but will get protection from the ability of Sir Jedran. The White King is one of those top options for death, so even at 5 extra points, he's still great value. Sir Jedran's closest equivalent is the Seneschal, as they both have the Champion rune mark. Jedran costs an extra 50, but for that you're getting slightly better damage, better toughness, and an extra whopping 15 wounds, bringing Jedran to 30 health. What's really interesting with Jedran, of course, is his Sleepless Sentinel ability, letting him protect the king. This puts enemy players in a bit of a bind. What do you kill? A minion that will just come back on a triple? Or this 30 wound beatstick? Like the Gnarlspirit Pack, this is a very flavourable set that is comparable to existing fighters, but does put a spin on it. You could already run something similar to it with a Night King on some Graveguard, but Sir Jedran is a new twist, and this group opens up the Resurrection build for other dead factions. This month's White Dwarf has the cards for all the fighters included. They also have a very cool looking project on how to make a Warcry dashboard, which seems to involve adding some foam board to an existing card, which you could probably just use without worrying about crafting. It also has a collection of Warhammer themed computer games, so this edition does look like it's an instant buy. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible 2-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.